Cozy with it as moisture will reappear just re-enter the area just in time for the weekend. Details straight ahead.
Andrew Schultz, imagine this, okay? A school with no curriculum, no teachers, no grades, and driven simply by what kids are interested in. Kind of sounds like an Alice Cooper song.
Very interesting concept. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? The idea behind Unschooling, what you did detail. Joining us this morning is Judy Arnall, a parenting expert, author, and speaker whose 5 kids are all unschooled. Good morning, Judy.
Good morning. Welcome. So I don't know if we actually got that right, so I really do want to know and understand, what is unschooling?
Unschooling is a form of education that is self-directed learning, and it fits nicely with Alberta Education's direction of moving from content to competencies.
Okay, well, you know, because these children are in your home, and I understand the scope of your children, different ages, and you've seen them through the different stages of traditional grades, so to speak, but how does it differ from homeschooling, because it does take place in the home?
Let me give you an analogy to help you understand it. You have a buffet, and you have a child there with an empty plate. So unschooling is the child can pick from the buffet and fill his plate. In traditional school and on home education, you have a teacher, you have the school board, you have the government filling that plate for that child. So an unschooled child is not uneducated, they just go at it in a different way.
Now, people in opposition to this type of learning have, a lot to say about it, and mostly they'll talk about socialization and not meeting the requirements that it would take to get into post-secondary institutions. What would you say to those people?
I would say that unschooled child will cover pretty well all the Alberta education outcomes by the end of grade 12. But in a more personalized and relevant way to them. Socialization is a common myth with any homeschoolers, and what you're doing is you're putting the child out in a community which is more same as an adult world than a school where they're all age graded.
Now, Judy, you mentioned that you're not going to, put the food on their plate, so to speak, but I'm assuming that you're going to provide the resources to your children when they have a direction and choose a path. Can you give us an example of maybe how one of your children was very interested in something and you did help make it happen? Are you the conduit for that learning?
I have a son who was very much into science and math. He was reading physics textbooks for fun at the age of 12, and these are high school textbooks, and he needed more resources. He needed a tutor or someone who could explain science a bit more than I could, and I was the facilitator, not the teacher, but I facilitated his learning in helping him acquire those resources to further his self-directed interest.
What are the origins of this movement, and how did you even hear about it?
This actually started in 1921 with a school called Summerhill in England. And it's been successful, it's been researched, and it's been very quiet. A lot of unschoolers don't tell people because people just can't quite wrap their head around kids learning for the fun of it.
Being a bit of a secret or an undercover thing at this point, but you're in the world. Do you have any idea of how many families are doing the unschooling in our city or in our nation for that matter?
In Alberta, it's usually about 10% of homeschoolers. So in Alberta, the number I think is around 9,000 homeschoolers. So about 10% of that would be about 900.
In the unschooling category? In
the unschooling. Now, a lot of unschoolers don't write exams, don't register, so they are underground.
Now, I know that when I was a teenager, I reached a phase where I was super lazy. I didn't want to do anything. How do you encourage a kid going through that period in their life?
You can't stop a child from learning, and you can't make them learn.
Right.
But if you give them a hugely rich environment, they're going to want to learn. And just in the school system, as kids are gearing down, they're burned out by high school.
Right.
Whereas if they're unschooling and they follow their passions and their directions, they're gearing up just at the time where it counts, when they're heading into post-secondary.
Unschooling, a new concept to me, just hearing about it this week, as a matter of fact. We want to know what you think at home. Go to breakfasttelevision.ca, answer our poll question. Lots of alternatives for parents and families out there. Have you thought about the alternatives when it comes to education for your children? breakfasttelevision.ca.
Judy, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Unschooling. All right, lots to come in our last hour, including chefs to the stars whipping it up for us here at Breakfast Television.
Hope they brought enough for all of us. 7:57, you're watching Breakfast Television right here on City TV.